It's a joke, we never win. Both sides got their masks on tight. Truth's a ghost in the dead of night. Fully in this circus stall, life for crowd has seen it all. In a world that's upside down, the beautiful dumpster fire down.
Hey guys, it's Mo. I couldn't put this on Politically Mo because you have to wait 24 hours. But yes, I am watching these hearings. I know we are behind. I am going to boost the sound. Uh, as for whether we are going to get any sort of answers today, I'm guessing highly doubtful to severely unlikely. I don't know. I just decided to hop on. I'm trying to do more things and stay up. I've got a good zillion windows, but I also want to watch this too. So I figure, why not watch with friends? And Dingus is sitting in my lap, so I have a good excuse to stay in the computer chair. So let's get going. They are going to do a tribute to Sheila Jackson Lee, from what I've seen. You are the queen of the chat window, DK Cripple. Cripples unite. I wonder how much tax money is wasted with them just, sitting there chit-chatting. Good Lord, I hate meetings. Possibly one of the many reasons I shouldn't be president. Just when you think...
member of this committee who always fought passionately for her constituents and causes that she believed would better the homeland. I would like to yield to the ranking member for his remarks that he'd like to make.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And like all of us, we are deeply saddened by the loss of my colleague who was my seatmate for quite a while, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee.
I will say that Congress is going to look different without her bun, because as possibly the only nerd that watches these things, that bun was epic. Also, some of her more interesting quotes, but I do hope that her family is, coming together and remembering the woman that they lost and, getting comfort in some of the things that she did. And, I may not have ever voted for her, mostly because I don't live in her constituency. But, when a family loses someone, that's really hard. So I hope that is, well, again, I have a cripple pass, so I'm okay. As South Park immortalized, I have a Jimmy pass.
Needless to say, she will be missed. So I'd like to, at this point, take a moment to honor the legacy of Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who, as I said, passed away last week. During her nearly 20 years on this committee, she served on every subcommittee and left her mark on all of them. As every single one of us in this room know, there was no more fierce an advocate than Congresswoman Jackson Lee, and she directed her passion to making the homeland safer and more secure. She was dedicated to oversight, asking pointed questions of government and private sector witnesses alike, and pressing for hard answers. She was a prolific legislator who took pride in writing her own legislation and improving the bills
I am
of her colleagues.
Nerd. Cowpoke, I love watching these.
Congresswoman Jackson Lee fought for resources, first responders, help for those suffering the effects of natural.
Sheila Jackson Lee, let me see if I can pull up a picture. You'll know her as soon as I pull up a picture. Let me see. Stop screen, present screen. Okay, so that is Sheila Jackson Lee. And I believe she was a representative for Houston. But her hair always kind of in a cornet. That was her signature look. And I will say it is weird that, she's not going to be there anymore. Uh, We need people that are my age in Senate, but aren't terrible, if possible.
Natural disasters and immigration policies that reflect our values as a nation of immigrants. Congresswoman Jackson Lee's reputation across Capitol Hill was similarly impressive. Indeed, it often appeared she could be in more than one place at a time. Within 1 hour, the Congresswoman could be observed giving a floor speech, participating in a committee hearing on a topic she cared about, and then giving remarks at an event to support a cause. She was a reluctant and relentless public servant, and every cause she took on was better because of it.
Okay, aides, could you take a couple minutes? I mean, this woman was there since, well, Joe Biden was there. I believe the Constitution was signed right next to these two. At least be nice. I mean, she wasn't as old as Robert Byrd, but
The nation owes her a debt of gratitude. I'm grateful that Congresswoman Jackson Lee decided to lend her immeasurable energy and tenacity to our committee. Her absence will be felt just as much as her presence, and we will miss her dearly. Today, we continue our prayers for her family, friends, and constituents. And I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
all right, guys, I have
Thank
a
you, Ranking
counter
Member.
going.
I ask that
Can
all
an
members
answer
of the committee please
investigating.
rise and join
So I'm
me
going
in
to put it back
observing a
to
moment of
0.
silence to honor Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee's memory.
I believe she was just older. Everything I've looked at hasn't said anything about an illness
Thank
or
you.
anything, just older.
The purpose of this hearing is to examine the assassination attempt.
This is the hearing, the second hearing on the assassination attempt. I believe these are the local police officers. So yesterday was the Secret Service, and they didn't really answer any questions. So now I believe that they are deposing the local Butler police. So that's what we are watching right now. We are behind. We are not currently live. We are about some time behind.
Against former President Donald Trump that took place July 13th. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. On July 13th, 2024,
Oh,
our nation
for those of you who are not gigantic C-SPAN nerds, first, the chairperson will give an opening statement. They might let the ranking member, so the senator that's been there longest, also have opening statements. They did that yesterday with with Raskin, who I really don't like, but not because he's a Democrat or anything like that. He annoys me. He's smarmy. Any hoozle. Then they will generally let their witnesses do like an opening 5-minute statement. Now, every single House member will have 5 minutes with which to ask questions to their witness. So you will see them try to get these witnesses to answer yes, no, or, you will get, yesterday you saw a lot of filibustering where the Secret Service woman took a lot of time realizing they only had 5 minutes. So those are some of the things that you're probably going to see today, unless the police chief happens to be very forthcoming.
nation came within an inch of an unmitigated tragedy and crisis. In Butler, Pennsylvania, a 20-year-old gunman mounted a building in plain view of former President Donald J. Trump's campaign rally, took aim, and fired multiple rounds. At exactly the right moment, however, President Trump turned his head to read a chart so that a bullet which would have pierced his skull instead grazed his ear. 3 others sitting behind President Trump on the stage experienced a different fate. 50-year-old Corey Comparator, a father and former fire chief, was struck and killed. As one outlet recently reported, this brave and loving man, quote, spent his final moments diving down in front of his family, protecting them from the gunfire that rang out, end quote. He is survived by his wife and 2 daughters. 2 others, 57-year-old David Dutch and 74-year-old James Copenhaver, were seriously injured. I'd like to pause for a moment of silence in remembrance of Corey and in prayer for the recovery of David and James. Thank you, everyone. This failed attempt on President Trump's life demands urgent and comprehensive congressional oversight. We must understand how it happened to ensure that changes are made so this never happens again. That was the scene last Saturday, where thousands of Americans were exercising their constitutional rights until they were viciously attacked. Yet what we saw after those shots rang out should also encourage everyone. We saw a leader under fire, rising up to show the attacker had failed. We saw brave Secret Service agents who put their bodies in harm's way. We see Americans across this nation refuse to let this thwart their participation in our democratic process. At the same time, however, we also witnessed a massive security failure by the Secret Service and the Department of Homeland Security. The closest someone has been to taking the life of a president or presidential candidate since Ronald Reagan was shot in 1981, more than 40 years ago. We must be committed in our determination to ensure that this never happens again. That is why the House Committee on Homeland Security is demanding full transparency and accountability. That's why we made a trip to Butler, Pennsylvania yesterday to see the site for ourselves. I'm grateful to the ranking member and the 11 other members who were able to come yesterday. And I want to share with the American people some of what we saw yesterday. I, for one, was struck by how close the unsecured building from which Thomas Crooks took his shot was to the stage where President Trump was standing. What we saw yesterday only raises more questions about how this roof was unsecured. And after several of our committee members climbed on the roof, let me tell you, any excuse about the roof being too steep to post a counter sniper team up there is pure nonsense. Protecting the President of the United States and presidential nominees is the Secret Service's mission. There can be no room for mistakes.
Welcome, Captain Kern.
Unfortunately, that was not the case here.
If you'd like an invite, I can send you
In order to prevent a
one.
repeat of this, we must first thoroughly.
Also, the absolute redonkulousness of the sloped roof. I mean, she could have said nothing at all. It would have been better had she said nothing at all. But instead, she decided to pick the dumbest, most ridiculous, most transparently like spadoinkle answer ever as to why they couldn't get on the roof. Y'all.
Thoroughly gather and assess the facts. And that's why we're here today. Most importantly, to obtain answers for the American people from officials in the best position to provide those answers. And like tens of millions of Americans, our list of questions is extensive. Why was the rooftop which the shooter fired multiple rounds not secured? Who made the decision not to post a counter sniper personnel on the roof or in a place better to cover the roof? Were warnings from private citizens in attendance about a shooter on top of the building heard by federal law enforcement? And if so, why was nothing done to respond? How did the shooter access the rooftop despite reported federal and local law enforcement presence in and around the building? Were there communication breakdowns that prevented law enforcement officials from effectively communicating with each other in response to alerts and threats? The shooter was spotted and designated as a suspicious person prior to President Trump taking the stage. Why wasn't President Trump moved to a secure location until the Secret Service could investigate? The shooter visited the rally site multiple times before the actual rally. Reports indicate he even flew a drone on a reconnaissance trip to the rally site on the day of the attack. Why wasn't the site secure? Following the rally, the Secret Service said that reports President Trump's security detail requested additional security resources were false. However, then backtracked and told the Washington Post that the Secret Service had learned new information, indicating the Secret Service headquarters may have in fact denied some requests. Why and when were those requests?
She was very, very careful and very lawyerly in how she answered those questions. And she specifically only answered the questions about the denial of personnel and increased resources were not denied for the Butler rally. So she completely dodged the question by answering only specifically that at the rally in question, nothing was unauthorized or was denied to the campaign. Now, the way she answers that immediately would bring up a follow-up question that most of the senators did ask, which is, so what instances was the service denied, or were things said no to which she said there's an ongoing investigation. So she probably went home, drank an entire vat of Ernest Julio, and then resigned.
Request denied. These are just some of the most pressing questions we have, and expected to hear answers from Secretary Mayorkas and Director Wray and Director Cheadle. We also expect to hear answers and questions about the shooter's motivation and what the FBI has found in its investigation, including information collected from the shooter's various devices. Unfortunately and unacceptably, they have refused to appear before the committee today. Director Cheadle testified yesterday before another committee, but many questions remain. Yesterday, she provided wholly unacceptable responses to members of the House Oversight Committee and completely failed to address the lack of.
So I guess my question is, we now have rogue three-letter agencies that are responsive to no one but themselves. Does this terrify anyone else who's of the Dale Gribble mindset? I mean, I'm not saying I have my, basement stocked up with Mountain Dew and gerbils, but they can be taken out of their position. And if it's shown that they were criminal or criminally negligent, I'm sure it can be taken there. But in order to prove that, you are going to have to get information. You are going to have to get evidence. And right now, the people that are investigating aren't turning over evidence. It's just as if a prosecutor wouldn't turn over discovery. It's infuriating.
Lack of confidence both sides of the aisle have in her leadership of the Secret Service. Her appearing before one committee yesterday also does not absolve her of her responsibility before this committee. In any case, make no mistake, we will continue to push for answers. While these federal officials refuse to testify today, we're grateful for the opportunity to speak with law enforcement members about the events of that tragic day. Their testimony will be critical to putting together this complicated puzzle, understanding coordination efforts, and getting to the truth about what happened. Before I conclude, however, I have to urge the ranking member to reconsider his legislation that was clearly intended to strip Secret Service protection from President Trump. While I understand the legislation would not have applied in this instance, it was clear to everyone that it was directed toward former president. We all introduced messaging bills. This one should be withdrawn. Today's hearing is critical so we can ensure that our children and grandchildren will grow up in a free nation where every American can participate in the democratic process. I hope every member will join me in getting to the bottom of what happened so that it doesn't happen again. I now recognize the ranking member, the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Thompson, for his opening statement.
Okay, so Mr. Thompson introduced, sorry, I'm pausing. He introduced the Disgraced Leaders Act or Dishonorable Leaders Act. Basically, if a protectee was charged with a felony, they could be stripped of Secret Service protection. Now, it doesn't take Mr. Magoo to see that it was completely and totally targeted only to Donald Trump, or perhaps, in 5D chess toward Hunter Biden. But this is going to be interesting.
Chairman, and good morning to everyone. It's been 10 days since a 20-year-old took his father's AR-15 rifle to a campaign event in Butler, Pennsylvania, shot the former president and 2 others, and took the life of an innocent bystander who died protecting his family. We're grateful for the brave law enforcement officers who responded to the heinous attack, and our thoughts and prayers continue to be with the victims and their families. Let me be clear at the outset of today's hearing. The Secret Service has a no-fail mission, and there must be answers and accountability for what occurred. The security failures must be identified and addressed to ensure that they never, ever happen again. That work is already well underway. The Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Pennsylvania State
Hello,
Police
Captain Kern.
have active and
Hello.
ongoing investigations. The Secret Service has begun an internal investigation. Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, has announced a bipartisan independent law enforcement review. And later this week, Congress will vote on a resolution to establish a task force on the attempted assassination. This committee also has begun its oversight.
I just sent
as well.
yours out. It should be there
Yesterday,
in about 3
As the
days.
chairman indicated, I joined a bipartisan group of committee members on a visit to the Butler Farms show grounds. We walked the site where the attack occurred. We saw the layout, buildings, and infrastructure for ourselves. We met with local officials and the county sheriff. Today's hearing is the next step in our oversight, and I hope it will be a productive one in keeping with the seriousness.
And thank you, Fraudit Wrangler, for gifting 10 memberships. And this went to Toodly Pip, Captain Kern, Paula Carpenter, Forever Not Me, Penny Ward, Clarification Required, SB, Poppy, and I have questions about everything, and Copper Norman Dapowski. I think I've got everyone's name right. Welcome to the Church of Mo. We have dark chocolate and sarcasm, but no patchouli oil or those plastic recording flutes. No, those are the only 2 sins in the Church of Mo.
I can print you a bunch.
That's not nice. I thought we were friends. Here's the part of political kabuki theater I don't like. Could we skip all of this political grandstanding? Everyone gets a chance to make a speech so they can go on CNN and just get to the questions that real Americans want, like where the hell is our president?
He's actually on Air Force One right now, apparently. We're not sure it's actually him, but a look-alike.
Ah.
I think it's one of his body doubles, personally. Yeah, the grandstanding is getting really, really old. It's just, it's bad.
Squid was monetized. Yay!
Oh.
This is awesome. I'm so glad. And I swear to goodness, if they use the scary boomstick thing, this as another grandstand to do that, I'm going to lose my mind.
Oh, you mean like they did yesterday?
Yes. My thing is, change the instrumentality. He used an RPG. He used, well, he used, he went all Predator and went full, crazy guy.
I mean, the way the anti, pew pew crowd was talking yesterday, he just rolled in with an Abrams tank.
Well, he rolled in with a sentient, fully automatic thing, from what they were saying.
A T-9000 Terminator. There you go.
Yes. Let's get back to this, because I'm sure bloviating continues.
The issue at hand. We must understand what happened in Butler and take corrective action to ensure the security of every Secret Service protectee. I hope to hear from our witnesses today about how state and local law enforcement work with the
Oh,
Secret Service and other
I read
federal
that wrong.
agencies
This would
at
be a
these
squid
events
braid
and
if
where
she was
coordination and
monetized, but it's a
communication
voluntary
Oh.
must be
braid.
improved.
Thank you even more.
While we can have policy differences as Americans, we must be united in condemning political violence in all its forms. There simply is no place for it in our democracy. The attempted assassination is another tragic example of the threat high-powered weapons like the AR-15 pose to our communities and to police officers trying to keep us safe. These weapons have killed regular Americans from all walks of life. Concert goers, church goers, movie goers, grocery shoppers, workers, and yes, even school children. I'm an avid hunter and law-abiding gun owner, but believe strongly that we must do more to keep these weapons off our streets and out of the wrong hands. As we continue our oversight of the events of July 13th, I hope the committee will work at the terrible toll that these weapons are taking and look at them
Terrible.
and make some
Terrible.
kind of policy
Terrible.
decisions to keep them.
Okay, this would be pertinent if there were no protection laws in place. If there were none whatsoever and we truly were a Second Amendment, free wild wild west. But we have laws.
Yep.
And if you look at the numbers, most of the people that violate those laws are the people that end up putting those numbers up. I mean, criminals don't follow the law. Write a law so they can't break it. I don't know.
I don't know.
Them out of the hands of a lot of people who don't deserve them. They are military-style weapons. We use them to, our men and women, to defend people on the battlefield. Our neighborhoods and our communities are not battlefields. Mr. Chairman, I thank you for holding this hearing and the witnesses for being here today. With that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. Other members of the committee are reminded that opening statements may be submitted for the record, and without objection, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Kelly, is permitted to sit on the dais and ask questions to the witnesses. I will say that votes just got called, and so what we'll do is let our witnesses do each of their 5 minutes, then we'll go into recess and come back with questions following our vote series. Sound good to you, Ranking Member? I'm pleased to have an important panel of witnesses before us today. I ask that our witnesses please rise and raise their right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give before the Committee on Homeland Security of the United States of Representatives will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help
Okay.
me God?
America, can we do better than polyester for our uniforms? I mean, I'm just asking for a friend. Those things are hot as balls. I mean, not that I have any, but hot as boob sweat then. Means those breathe like a trash bag.
I mean, you're not wrong. The fatter I got, I quite understood what the wife was telling me about boob sweat. Not nice.
Well, let's get them sworn in after I've raged against polyester.
You may be seated. Let the record reflect that the witnesses have answered in the affirmative. I would now like to formally introduce our witnesses. Colonel Christopher Paris serves as the Commissioner for the Pennsylvania State Police. In this role, he exercises command, administrative, and fiscal authority over the Pennsylvania State Police, the 10th largest police agency in the United States. Commissioner Paris has served in the Pennsylvania State Police since his enlistment in 1999. Thank you for the support getting to the site yesterday. Mr. Patrick Yose currently serves as the President, National Fraternal Order of Police. In this role, Mr. Yose leads the order and its more than 367,000 law enforcement members in representing police officers and the
That is a cop face.
Prior to taking his current role,
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Yose served an impressive
Baby
36
Gator, this
years
is
as an active
the
law
second
enforcement officer.
House
I thank the
hearing
witnesses
about
for
the
being here today,
assassination.
and I now recognize Colonel Paris.
It's going to feature basically the local police, not the Secret Service, not the FBI. They decided not to show up today. I didn't know you could just like ignore Congress. I thought that Steve Bannon was in there for doing that, or in prison for doing that, but I guess you can when you're Congress or when you're the FBI, the CIA, and apparently the Secret Service.
For 5 minutes.
And
to
the Justice
summarize his
Department.
opening statement.
True.
Chairman Green, Ranking Member Thompson, Homeland Security Committee members, good morning. I am Colonel Christopher Paris, Commissioner of the Pennsylvania State Police. I would like to take this opportunity to offer our condolences on the passing of Congresswoman Lee. I would also like to take this opportunity to express our condolences to the Comparator family and offer our continued prayers to Mr. Dutch, Mr. Copenhaver, as well as former President Trump as they continue to recover. I'm humbled to be here today and testify about a tragic incident which has deeply impacted the Butler community, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and our nation. I would like to dedicate my testimony here today to the approximately 6,400 women and men, civilian and enlisted, of the PSP who work tirelessly for Pennsylvania, and it is my honor to lead them. I'd like to offer a perspective that this is very much an ongoing, complex, and dynamic investigation. And each day, as we arrive at day 10 today, I learn multiple new facts as we uncover new information as the investigation progresses. I'd like to offer a point of clarification affirmatively about PSP's role. Prior to the shooting, our role was to support the Secret Service with personnel and assets that they requested. Our operation plan completed to fulfill this responsibility consisted of 32 members, and we had two main responsibilities: a motorcade operation for the transportation with the Secret Service of former President Trump, as well as manning and staffing security posts inside the secure area of the Butler County Farm Show. Additionally, we provided two marked cars with uniformed troopers outside of the secure perimeter to provide roving duties, as the name implies, responding to incidents that may occur as a large gathering of people were moving to the venue. After the shooting, very early after the shooting, I had a conversation with the FBI, wherein the FBI is the responsible investigating agency for the attempted assassination of a former president under federal law. The same actions that led to that also led to the homicide of one Pennsylvanian and the attempted homicide of two additional, as well as the use of force by the Secret Service counter sniper to neutralize the threat of Mr. Crooks, thus necessitating an officer-involved shooting investigation. So the PSP currently is conducting a criminal investigation parallel to and in concert with the FBI to identify any and all parties criminally culpable under Pennsylvania state law for the homicide and for the attempted homicides. And as I said, we are additionally conducting an investigation into the U.S. Secret Service counter sniper who neutralized the threat posed by Crooks after he opened fire. I've been recently briefed about the Department of Homeland Security's Commission After Action report. I can tell you that the Pennsylvania State Police will fully cooperate with that investigation, and it's my hope that I can answer some questions here today without sacrificing that ongoing investigation and prove to be of value to the committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colonel Paris. I now recognize Mr. Yost for 5 minutes to summarize his opening statement.
Good morning, Chairman Green, Representative Thompson, and distinguished members of the House Committee on Homeland Security. My name is Patrick Yost, and I'm the National President of the Fraternal Order Police, the nation's oldest and largest law enforcement labor organization. I'd like to first take this opportunity to recognize a long-term member of Congress and a member of this committee, Sheila Jackson Lee, for her contribution to great work done here in Washington. I want to thank you for providing me with an opportunity to appear before you today on behalf of the 377,000 members of the Fraternal Order of Police as this committee examines the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump just 10 days ago. Before I begin my testimony, I want to express my admiration for the Secret Service agents who jumped into action and protected the former president.
I think it's like everything, if I'm going to be honest. Even if you look in the military, as you get to the more higher ranking officers that do more office work, maybe older officers, yeah, you still have to do fitness. But I mean, you know, eh, look, he's working on it. He switched to zero sugar pudding.
Rarely does the public witness just how selfless these agents are, placing themselves between flying bullets and their protectee. They, along with state and local law enforcement officers on the scene that day, demonstrated extraordinary courage. I also want to extend my thoughts and prayers to the family of Corey Compolitor and the others who were injured that day. My testimony today will not be specific to the attempted assassination of President Trump. Instead, I hope to provide a perspective of state and local law enforcement when providing support and assistance to these events. We must remember that the law enforcement mission is a shared mission, and agencies at every level routinely cooperate.
Well, so Greedy Bloke, the fact that they have not been giving out evidence, the fact that they have not been clarifying things, I mean, there are rumors abounding that there were 2 to 3 people, that, there was a bunch of other, shenanigans going on. So the fact that they are not giving answers is allowing a lot of craziness to come through. Although I did see an audio breakdown where they did allege, or the guy doing it, I mean, look, he knows computer magic, and he had little soundy wave things on there. And he was trying to say that there were 3 different force multiplier styles used. But the fact that we aren't getting any answers is why people are going insane. And I mean, these hearings are okay, but we're not getting any answers.
And I don't think we ever will. You think that the government's going to tell on itself?
We still don't know what happened in Las Vegas.
No.
And I mean, there hasn't been any sort of movement on that for years. How many people passed away in that? Like 300?
It was, I think it was 200 casualties or something of that sort. And a couple of like 400 or 500 that were wounded.
Yeah. And we still know nothing. I mean, this is, okay, here is my political thought, and I don't really subscribe to either party. The federal government is too big. When a federal government is so big that we don't know what happens, or it is able to, let's say, Dale Gribble, its own kind of things like this, we need to start looking at local governments.
I have to fact check myself. It was 58 people killed, 500 hurt.
Okay, I knew it was a giant number. Yes, Laura Loomer broke that he allegedly had a TAV in Las Vegas, but then they flew him back to Rehoboth. I don't know. I just think that we need to see the man alive. He needs to do a live address. Americans need to be reassured. And regardless of how you feel about Kamala, I don't think she's going to reassure a lot of people.
No.
And even seeing Joe come out and shuffle down the steps is probably not going to reassure a lot of people, but it would at least be a sign of life. Yes, and people are going insane. I mean, they were slowing down the frames as he was coming down the airplane, and noticed he was only doing that left kind of face smile, but he was doing that during his big boy press conference. So I can't quite figure out. He also had several stints and I think a plate, put in. So this would not be something uncommon. Again, we're just getting no transparent communication, and that's the problem. And I don't know.
We're talking about that this morning, that he's got a history of, multiple aneurysms.
Well, yeah, remember when he was first either into the White House or campaigning, he had that air boot on.
Hmm?
Because he had some sort of kind of moment, and then chased one of his dogs out of the shower because it had a tail. This is a true story. This is what he said.
I know.
Oh,
I mean-
collaborate with one another. Law
yeah.
enforcement
People are either going to start making up the thing, and he was, I believe. Now, I think that this is going to be a quagmire, if you want my humble opinion. The Democratic Party, and I am so sorry about your father, Amy's Positive Pathways. The Democratic Party has a definite schism between those who would like the old guard, that would like to support Israel, that have a lot of, people that are of Jewish descent that want to, donate to them. And then you've got the young radicals, where sort of the energy and people that are willing to go out and harvest ballots and things like that do not want anything to do with Israel. So this is going to be something that I think will break the party apart. I don't think they're going to be able to hold it. I feel like the very radical part of the party is going to feel like Kamala Harris is going to be a neoliberal. She's got a terrible enforcement record, and she's not charismatic. I know that they're talking about it right now, but as a person who would rather be talked to as a person instead of my fallopian tubes, her being a lady is not going to count for much for me. But that's just my 2 cents on it. Not to mention, she's done nothing in her entire time since vice president.
Oh, she's really good at actually enacting forced manual labor, though.
True. And getting her staff to quit.
And lying to the California state government.
Well, it's California.
That's true. I mean, I can't blame her there, honestly.
All right, let's get back to this.
enforcement in our country is highly decentralized, with more than 90% of services provided by state and local agencies through more than 18,000 different jurisdictions. State and local agencies would not be effective without the support of their federal colleagues, and our federal partners would be unable to perform their functions without the assistance of state and local agencies. Anyone suggesting that the United States Secret Service not rely on state and local agencies at these events is simply uninformed. At these events, local law enforcement works under the direction of the United States Secret Service, which must ensure that all agencies involved at the event have a clear understanding of their roles and responsibility. Law enforcement agencies provide valuable community insight that can be crucial in identifying potential risk and issues. They contribute resources, personnel, and support that augments the capabilities of the U.S. Secret Service to ensure that there's adequate staffing and all contingencies are covered. Local law enforcement should be part of the command post and communications center to facilitate real-time information sharing and rapid response to emerging situations. This collaborative planning process ensures that all potential risks are identified and mitigated, and that local officers are fully integrated into timely and coordinated responses. Our presence is a vital part of the security matrix, but the United States Secret Service ultimately is responsible and is the final arbiter of any security matters affecting their protectee and the public. Clear and constant communication between participating agencies and the United States Secret Service is crucial to ensure the security of the protectee and everyone at the event. All this said, there were critical failures of security at the event in Butler. It is important that we learn from these failures to better provide safety and security for our leaders moving forward, as in public also attending these events. In the coming election, we will have extraordinary challenges placed on our Secret Service as they provide security at sites all across this nation over the next 4.5 months. And I'm confident that state and local law enforcement agencies are well prepared and ready to assist the United States Secret Service in this mission. I want to pause for a moment, and I want to flag another issue that often creates unnecessary obstacles for agencies within working together in real time, and that being interoperable communications. In the aftermath of 9/11, Congress wisely established FirstNet to
Yeah.
address the voice.
So this is the other thing that I was confused about because I know after 9/11 they had integrated. So didn't they work it out so that parallel agencies could get a hold of each other? Look, I don't understand electronics.
Yeah. So FirstNet was actually created, and they were supposed to have interoperability nationwide, no matter what agency you're in. And Congress went ahead and authorized a huge sum of money to build out this network. And then they found out it's too expensive, and it cost way more money to do than they actually thought. And
Oh,
20 some years later, it still ain't done.
oh, see, and here I'm sitting here thinking I live in the safety that we have an integrated system. Awesome.
Yeah.
So now it's even going to be more expensive than had we done it when we first authorized it.
Yep.
Okay.
Voice
A
and
lot more.
data communication
Wonderful.
failures faced by officers, partners, and first responders. To facilitate full use of FirstNet's advanced capabilities, we strongly urge Congress to ensure that our nation's public safety organizations at all levels of government are aware of and fully leverage the critical communication lifeline. Further, Congress and the FCC must take all necessary steps to guarantee FirstNet's continued success and evolution. In conclusion, close collaboration between Secret Service and their advanced teams and in local law enforcement agencies provide indispensable support that ensures the safety and security of our nation's leaders and the public. These collaborative efforts should exemplify the very best in our interagency cooperation and underscore our collective commitment to national security. I want to thank you for the opportunity to appear here today, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Yos. And Colonel Paris, I just want to make sure I say this. You feel comfortable at any time to say, I'm sorry, this could compromise the investigation. These guys get this all the time. This is classified information. They're accustomed to that. So just, they're gonna be cool with that, I assure you. Members will be recognized by order of seniority when we come back from votes, but we will take a recess and return.
Yeah. That 5-minute break turned into significantly longer.
And you wonder why meetings, it's so funny. I hate meetings, but I watch meetings in government for fun.
I know.
I can't explain me. I don't try.
I've been addicted to C-SPAN since I was like 17.
Oh my God, is that Swalwell?
It is.
Holy giblets, what is the ridiculousness that's going to fall out of his mouth hole? Oh, yeah, pay your taxes late. They have, 27 armed people, but try to get a meeting on time. And they're like, what are we doing? Time?
The committee will come to order. Members will be recognized in order of their seniority for their 5 minutes of questioning. An additional round of questioning may be called after all members have been recognized. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questioning. Colonel Paris, typically these events, do they typically have two control rooms or two sort of tactical operations areas where the Secret Service is in their sort of spot and the local law enforcement is in their sort of command center? Is that how it's typically done?
I would say from my experience and from state police operations, to include this event as planned in our operations plan, we had integrated communications by having our PSP personnel in the Secret Service command post.
So your person was in there in that command post on this event?
Yes, sir.
Do you know if the local sheriff had anybody or the deputies that were also provided, the local guys?
I would be remiss at this point to say I knew an
Okay,
exact
okay.
listing of everyone in that command post.
The sheriff yesterday told us he did not. Would you expect him to have had somebody there?
So I would say generally, there's a lot of talk about interoperability and communications. The state police, for example, operate our own statewide radio network. So we have the ability to, if we have an incident, a long protracted incident, for example, where we need to patch other agencies in, we have the capability to do that. However, Secret Service, for example, maintains some additional encrypted communications. So the best way to integrate unified command.
Is physically present in the
Correct,
command
that would
site?
be our,
Yeah,
I
that's
would
how the
expect-
Army does it in the military.
I would expect our commanders to have personnel in there so that we could have a radio communication as well as a redundancy in the operations plan with a telephonic backup.
Do you know if in this particular case, I mean, normally they sweep these sites with dogs. Was a K-9 team used here for this event?
I do not know. I have not seen the Secret Service operations plan. I've asked for it. I've yet to receive it. I did double check.
Have a good day, Amy.
That PSP could typically offer to the Secret Service if they requested it. And I did verify that in this event, we did not provide any dogs.
Okay. As I understand it, there wasn't one, but you'd expect one in a situation like this.
So I want to be clear that when the Secret Service interfaces with the state police for whatever protectee and level of protection they're endeavoring to provide, the Secret Service is the lead agency. So as per the earlier statement of 18,000 law enforcement agencies across the United States, it would be very difficult, I would assert, for the Secret Service to operate all across the United States and have each individual agency telling the Secret Service how the operation should be run. They're the lead agency. If that was something that their protocols called for during the initial meeting when preliminary steps and agencies were brought together, that would be something that would be discussed typically.
The AGR building, did your guys on the ground there ever voice concerns to the Secret Service for not putting somebody on that building?
So I suppose the best sequence of events that I can give you is that PSP was notified by email on July 5th about this event. There was an initial planning meeting where we had commanders present on Monday, July 8th. So over Tuesday, the 9th, and Wednesday, the 10th, those commanders that we designated, basically our orders are from the front office, my team on down. You know, we work collaboratively with the Secret Service, collaborate, give them what we can. The final walkthrough occurred on the 11th. Present at that meeting were the two commanders that were tasked with both staffing the security checkpoints on the interior of the secure perimeter, as well as the commander who was going to be in charge of the motorcade. But in addition to that, a PSP area commander was on that walkthrough, holding the rank of major.
Could you share a little bit of insight? I appreciate the timeline, but could you share a little bit, because I only have about a
I
minute.
apologize.
Yeah, the specific to the AGR building.
So on that walkthrough, our area commander asked specifically who was responsible for the AGR building, and we were told that Butler ESU was responsible for that area by several Secret Service agents on that walkthrough.
That makes no sense.
No, it doesn't.
All right. One last quick question. Real quick, I mean, I'll let you comment about it. The slope of the roof, would that have prevented a sniper from being up there?
I don't believe so, sir.
Okay, thank you. I yield. I now recognize the ranking member for his 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Parrish, you talked about your tenure with the Pennsylvania State Police. Have you worked other events where a presidential candidate or the president has come to Pennsylvania?
Yes, I have, sir.
So this would not have been an unusual occurrence to participate.
I ran the numbers. We typically do about 20 missions a year, the low 20s a year in a regular year. We're already in the low 20s this year, being an election year. So our commanders in the field who interface with the Secret Service to plan and provide support are on a routine basis. I wouldn't say an everyday occurrence, but a fairly routine basis.
Okay. So can you walk us through the Pennsylvania State Police's interaction with the Secret Service You kind of started off giving us from the point of contact that an occurrence was about to happen. Was there anything particular about the Butler, Pennsylvania event that stands out as regular, irregular, or anything?
I would say, not to my knowledge, based on our discussions with our commanders who planned it, it progressed along a normal timeline. They attempted to give the Secret Service, and I believe provided the Secret Service with everything they were requested.
So your role on that day in terms of the state police was what?
So I would classify it as in a support role, and the two main areas of responsibility for the state troopers that were assigned that day were those participating in the motorcade to get former President Trump from his point of landing to the venue in Butler County and back, with several other additional entities that were requested by the Secret Service. And then on site, we had to staff security posts that were determined by the Secret Service. All of those posts were inside of the secure perimeter of the Butler County Farm show.
I guess I was one of those individuals who traveled to Butler. Just for my information, have you had any interaction with the FBI or anything as they look into the investigation as to what you or your men observed on that day?
Yes, we're conducting an investigation largely in concert with and parallel.
This man is going to use all his 5 minutes on 2 questions. He is the slowest question answer. I'd be Ben effing Shapiro. I mean,
Well, I'd like to tell you.
I mean, I know part of it is the Southern drawl and you're very more relaxed, but I'm like, he's going to get a question and a half.
I mean, that's what the humidity does to you, apparently.
True that. True that.
Because the actions of crooks have federal legal implications and state law implications.
Okay, thank you. President Yost, in your comments, you talked about the need for communication. You talked about FirstNet. And so we have federal, state, and local law enforcement at an event like what we're talking about in Butler. But in our conversation with some of the locals, not state police, but the sheriff's department and the chief of police in Butler yesterday, those individuals did not have communication with actually state police or Secret Service. Would that, in your professional opinion, be a vulnerability for managing an event like this?
Well, I think we can go back to 9/11 when we identified at that time that the interoperability of different agencies to be able to communicate really was a hindrance. There's an infrastructure in place now to address these interoperabilities, but at the same time, they're not always utilized in every event. I do not have any direct knowledge whether that was the issue here, but I can tell you it is a common issue in law enforcement and ability for our agencies not to be able to communicate. Not that the technology is not necessarily there, it's because that they're not always incorporated.
Yeah, you know, we passed legislation mandating obviously FirstNet interoperability, and we tied funding to make sure that that happens. But here we are looking at this situation, and we picked up some valuable information that we're still not where we need to be on that. I would think that Colonel, the role of the state police is invaluable, but it appeared in talking with some of the local officials, as you say, it's just, you're not primary, you're kind of secondary in that role, that we need to somehow, as a committee, look at how do we enhance the overall mission so that we have no gaps. So I
Okay,
look forward.
here's a redonkulous idea. How about we have frontline cops, people who have done these, these things for years and years and years. How about we have them write protocols instead of this guy who's taken 15 years to answer ridiculous questions or ask questions that make no sense?
The problem with their the proposed communication network that work started on, has never been completed on, is ego. Take my county, for example. The local PD and the local sheriff's office, they don't like each other. So unless it's an absolute necessary thing, they're not going to call over the radio, switch channels for interoperability, and call for help.
Oh, good.
It happens all the time. And that's
I
what
will
happened
say-
here. I have a meeting, because the state police were regaled to basically babysitter duty. And Butler PD was, in crowd control and overwatch, along with the Secret Service. Who in their right mind puts the state police underneath a local PD? There are egos hurt here, and it's not a cop ego thing. It's just an ego thing. It's just, human nature.
Well, but it's the same sort of thing you see if you've worked in retail. Corporate will put out something that's supposed to, make your life easier, but it has 18 different impractical steps that you cannot use in a
Exactly.
store. So rather than having people actually go out and try these new proposed things, they just, send out this thing and then, cashiers figure out a way around it and then they send out the next thing. I have never in my life not understood why you don't take people who are in the front lines, ask them what would help you, and then, go from there, like the people that actually know what you need done.
I mean, the only time that ever works is if you're on Undercover Boss. Just saying.
True. Al Gore, I have some ideas about the internet. Could I get a sarcasm font?
To the work of this committee, identifying the gaps, look at the after action review to close those gaps. So just to tell you one, Butler, Pennsylvania has no permitting process for events of that size. So you can announce it and hold it, and local government doesn't really have anything to do with it. And we were assured by local government that they would try to fix that. That they said we have to be more involved in events of this size.
Wait,
So
you're
that
going to
if this
tell
was
the
not
local
the best
government how to
venue,
run their stuff?
then that permitting could have gotten engaged and suggested an alternate venue, those kinds of things. So thank you very much.
And the
I
bad
yield
guy
back.
with bad intentions would have still done bad
Gentleman yields.
things.
I now recognize
Yes.
Chairman McCall for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank you for the site visit that we had at Butler, Pennsylvania yesterday. It was very eye-opening, educational. I agree with the ranking member's comments in terms of, after
Thank you
9/11,
for the
excuse me,
banana super
after
sticker.
9/11, connecting the dots and federal, state, and local working together was the answer. I led a joint terrorism task force when I worked at the Department of Justice, and I also was involved in national security events, so I kind of know how these things operate. My question is to Colonel Paris. It's standard practice that the
Today's Senate hearing and Mo brought to you by high fructose corn syrup. Corn fed, it's America's belief.
I'm bad today.
Well, I'm trying these new poppy sodas that are prebiotic. I admit they're not great. I'm going to be honest.
I mean, it's kind of like my wife buying me this. Vegan
Ooh, that'll
with chia seeds. So I'm going to
Ooh.
grow my own chia pet.
That's cool. You can 3D print a Bob Ross head and then make your own Chia Pet. I feel the distinct need, though, since I see a Dr. Pepper, to say like Sarah Boone, Sarah Boone, Sarah Boone, and see if she comes in like Bloody Mary, which is terribly immature. Let's get back to the point, Mo. Not that we're going to accomplish anything.
The lead federal agency will come in and meet with the state and locals regarding the security plan before the event, prior to the event. Sir, did you participate or did your department participate in that?
So I did not participate. As I stated earlier, there were two commanders dedicated to those two primary roles, the motorcade and the staffing of the posts on site within the secure perimeter, as well as a state police area commander. So just as a way of background, our area commander that covers multiple troops in that area of the state, out of nearly 5,000 troopers, there are only 4 area commanders. So that major was present for the walkthrough on the 11th.
And were your troopers assigned inside the perimeter or outside?
Inside.
Inside. And
With
was
the
the outside within the jurisdiction of the local police?
So just as a point of clarification, there were 2, on the operations plan, there were 2 marked cars that were
No
assigned
worries,
roving
Slinky.
duties, which would primarily, as the name implies, be outside of the secure perimeter on roadways, responding to incidents that potentially could occur as a result of a congregation of that many people. But
So we saw, we walked into, we actually walked onto the roof where the sniper was. A clear, eyes on, clear shot of the president. A tree blocked the Secret Service's view.
Okay, you
This
guys,
kid
I
did
am
some
not casting
investigation, yeah.
aspersions, but this gentleman right here, is it safe to have someone who looks so much like the Zodiac behind this guy? We caught him, y'all. We beat your ciphers. There he is. He's been hiding in plain sight all this time.
That dude just looks miserable too.
He's having to sit to listen to these people bloviate and not do anything all day. I mean, and he has to look like he's paying attention and is, happy about it.
Is he pulling a
got
Biden
a
currently
drone
and
out
falling
there.
asleep? Oh, I think he
I
did
don't
fall
know.
asleep.
Yeah. Well, true, cowpoke, but come on, that joke never gets old when you see a guy in horn rimmed glasses and a super high and tight.
There days prior, got an aerial surveillance of the premises. And that position was probably the best position outside the perimeter as far as I could tell. There was also a water tower. That would have been a perfect spot for Secret Service. Were you aware of any presence of Secret Service in this water tower?
I was not.
And you're aware of what I'm talking about?
I am familiar. I physically flew out there on Saturday the 13th. It was still very much an active crime scene, so I did not walk the roofs, but I did.
On the adjacent building, we got a tour of that as well, where I believe the local police were positioned. There were 3 windows. The first one had a plain view of where the sniper would be. However, they were stationed in the second and third windows. Are you familiar with this at all?
I am not, from the standpoint that I have not seen the Secret Service's operations plan, and our deference would be to them to assign Butler ESU
Right.
According
And
to.
they were apparently local counter snipers. Do you know if they should have been assigned to the rooftop?
I would defer to there are many ways that you can cover.
Yeah, Slinky, you have a good point. And I will say this gentleman, Colonel Paris, is coming off as humble, but a leader. He is saying, hey, we're going to try to help you out, but there are some things I can't talk about. He's not being evasive. I mean, if anything, he's just answering questions as he can. And I think he's looking the best of all the people that have gone up there so far. Except for polyester. Look, when I'm president, we're going to work on it. I'll get y'all something cotton. It'll breathe. I have seen some of you people on these cop videos. Look, as a fluffy American, I am against polyester too. You're welcome.
Obviously, positioning people.
Just to
on
let you
the
know,
top
Joe has been spotted.
Well, and going to
But the
actual
real
site,
Joe or like the body
way
double?
too close. He
Well,
should
that I
never
don't
have been
know.
allowed to get on top of that building. And I don't know how, and I know he's on your radar inside the perimeter. You seem to have lost him, and somehow he finds his way up to the rooftop unimpeded until a local law enforcement officer crawls on top of the roof and looks at him, and he points his AR-15 at him. My question to you is, what was the communication like that day? Typically, Secret Service has one channel for them, the other channel for state and locals. Was there any communication to identify, hey, this is not a local police officer. This is, in fact, an unidentified individual on the rooftop. Was that communicated to the Secret Service?
So my belief, as I sit here today, is that we did have integrated communications from members that were inside of the Secret Service command post.
Not Joe.
Completely deferential to the ongoing nature of the investigation. I have an understanding of a sequence of events, but I would like to draw a distinction between a sequence of events, meaning.
So my theory is that they thought maybe he was an officer, but then they find out he's not. The thing I find interesting is that the counter sniper Secret Service, within seconds of the shots on the president, kills a suspect. That tells me he had him in his sights. Maybe he was not aware of who the individual was not identified. But I know within seconds.
That's the other question I have, I guess, is when are they allowed? Because I know that the Secret Service, allegedly, from what we've garnered, did not have to wait for someone to aggress first. And I know they said, well, you have to be sure. Well, yeah, if he's looking at it through a rangefinder, but when you see him set up and he is clearly visible, how is that not? Oh, maybe he's getting ready to paint the president with an easel. He's just there to check the AC unit. He's a vent guy. I mean, this is trying to lie to us.
I still have one really, really big question. The backpack that was described was a fairly small backpack.
Yeah.
Who did he get a full-size AR on the
Can you
roof
break
without
them-
anybody seeing him?
Can you take the barrel off? Look, I'm not a
Not the style that
weaponsologist.
not the style that it was rumored that he had.
Well, I guess my question is, how in the hell does this Joker, again, look, if I saw this kid in a Walmart, I would not go down the chip aisle with him. So you're telling
No.
me 100 gajillion people saw this weirdo kid carrying a ladder? Or
Yeah.
the Secret Service did their once around and didn't check a ladder he's stashed somewhere? It's all of these
Yes.
little things that make this just simply incompetence unbelievable.
Well, yeah, I mean, so they already said that there were no bomb sniffing dogs on the on the property either. I thought that was pretty much protocol to go through the parking lot with bomb sniffing dogs.
And wasn't this during a time period where they knew that this was an elevated threat
Yeah,
time
the
with
Iranian.
Iran?
Yeah,
I mean, none of this is making any sense. But
No.
let's continue.
Seconds after the shots were fired at the president, the threat was eliminated. And, lastly, I just want to end with this. This was actually astonishing, and I want to get your confirmation.
Son, you
He
smell
had a
like ladder up
detonation
in
device
here.
with him, and 2 of his bombs were located in his car that was parked on the other side of the perimeter. Seems to me a good theory would be that he was going to kill the president and then detonate his car, causing a diversion, and then escape from the crime scene. Are you aware of any of this?
I am aware of the presence of the device on his person. We were aware of that very early on, and that was a serious tactical consideration in the hours in the immediate aftermath as we worked that crime scene. But to your point about his ultimate theory or what his ultimate motivation was, that remains
I
under
think so.
investigation.
And he had a rangefinder on him as well. That's a big red flag. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize the gentleman from California.
Everybody's
Mr.
behaved.
Swalwell, for 5 minutes.
Oh,
of question.
Lord. What is this
Violence
art tart
has
going to
never
say?
been the answer. And I thank both of you for your service in law enforcement and testifying today. Violence.
All right. Spoiler alert. I don't like Mr. Swalwell. And if you want a, great example of what public school has done to people, here you go.
Has never been the answer. Not on a certain day in January and not on a day in July. I remember I was 12 years old and my dad was on the way to school on a cold day in January. And my dad, who was a cop, stopped me as I was about to leave and he wanted me to watch the television. His guy had just lost a presidential election and some young kid from Arkansas was about to be sworn in as the new president of the United States. My dad was burned. He really liked George Bush. He did not like Bill Clinton.
Sir, your dad was only one of 5 people that liked Herbert Walker. That explains a lot, Mr. Swalwell. That explains a lot. Your childhood was
Oh.
very, very traumatic.
Speaking of passed away presidents, Carter passed away
Oh, he did?
this morning.
It's sad to say that I'm glad, but I know he missed his wife terribly. So I'm glad that he's back together with, his wife in heaven.
Oh, definitely.
And, who would want to linger in a body that's failing? So I'm glad he's finally at peace. And he was, maybe not the greatest president economically, but he did a really good job at being a good human being after he was done being president.
Oh, we have a mod.
Let's see. Oh, and welcome Nick Raid. This is Eric Swalwell. I just got done making fun of him, so we will continue. Although that tie, sir, what are we doing? Is it the early 80s again? Gold or silver lame? Ugh.
But he told me to stop and watch the television coverage of the inauguration because he said, look at that, son. He said, that's what makes us so special.
He's going to use
My
5
guy
minutes
lost.
to bloviate.
This guy's getting sworn in and not a shot. has been
Welcome,
fired.
Nick.
That's what makes us different. Violence has never been the answer. It's despicable that somebody thought they could take a shot at the former president and change the course of history. We don't know much about the political beliefs of this individual. We know he was a 20-year-old male, registered Republican, gun enthusiast.
Okay, here's the other part to that. There were so many people registering Republican to screw with Donald Trump in the primary in states where you had to register as the particular party that you would like to screw with. And since Joe Biden was, technically the incumbent, then a lot of people voted for Nikki Haley, which, again, I don't know why you would side with Beelzebub, but that's just me. So that really doesn't make all that much difference to me as far as what he registered as.
Also had researched the DNC, also had researched President Biden, also had researched Leader Hakeem Jeffries. We don't know what led this madman to try and kill the former president, but it's despicable. And the people who went to that rally deserved to hear, without violence, the candidate that they were supporting. Commissioner Paris, I'm sorry this happened to your community. I'm sorry this happened to the person who died and the persons who've been wounded. I just want to understand, though, because we are a country that is armed to the teeth, how many firearms were within the perimeter, just by back of the envelope estimate.
Here we go.
What? And
The only firearms of which I'm aware that were inside of the perimeter were those in the possession of law enforcement.
And would you estimate that was hundreds or dozens?
I would only feel comfortable not having seen the Secret Service operations plan about the PSP members that were inside of the perimeter.
How many rounds did the shooter fire before he was killed? Do you know?
I believe that the number is eight casings have been recovered.
I also understand the emotions around this assassination attempt, but I am not going to allow some, and I say some, the chairman of this committee is a serious legislator who wants answers. Some are not. And some are trying to rewrite what has happened in our country over the last 8 years, erase what happened in this building on January 6th. One
oh,
member
for the love
this
of all
body
that is.
in Congress said the Republican district attorney in Butler County should immediately file charges against Joseph Biden for inciting assassination. Another
Should.
said Congressman Scalise, Justice.
What do you think Congress's Kinko's budget is? Because could I have a tenth of that back in my taxes?
A tenth just for one hearing.
Yeah, I mean those are like $100 or $200 to
And
get
they're
those
just gonna throw
printed
'em
on.
away.
Oh, I know. Look, Swalwell, sweetie, Cupcake, Fang's ex-boyfriend. This is not the time for this. What you are basically doing is stepping over the, terrified people, the people who lost their lives and were injured, to, put your soapbox right on top of them and then talk about something that no one is talking about right now. It is this grandstanding stuff, and he is the worst for it.
Justice Kavanaugh and now President Trump. For years, Democrats and their allies have recklessly stoked fears, calling President Trump and others threats to democracy. Another said Democrats and liberals in the
Not a
media
lie.
have called Trump a fascist.
Yeah.
They've compared him to Hitler. They've tried to lock him up.
Where's the lie? Stop me when you get to a lie.
A radical shift in what has really happened in our country. In fact, the former president's current vice presidential nominee is the one who said that Donald Trump might be America's Hitler, might be a cynical a-hole, cultural heroin he's responsible for, nauseous
Okay, wait.
and reprehensible.
Hey, Mr. Hypocritical, Mr. Glasshouse, you just told some people that you want to be better and actually fight for legislative differences. You are using this as a grandstand, you noxious moron. You are a half-wit pretending to be a mid-wit and looking like a dimwit. Stop it.
I joined the chairman in seeking unity as the antidote to political violence.
Unity.
Unity as the antidote to political violence. But
I
we're not
can't
going to
unify with
erase
dumb people.
and rewrite and allow some to reincarnate themselves as victims of what happened. We can't let this ever happen again.
Dude got his ear shot. I mean, look, you may not like him. I wouldn't want to be married to him. But dude got shot. He's not over here like someone, set off some firecrackers next to me. No. Dude got shot. He's not rewriting himself as the Messiah. He's simply saying, I got shot and you guys got mad at him for wearing a bandage. And then you want to talk it up about, every other person. Are you insane?
And again, we must arm law enforcement and have better security perimeters. But in this country, violence has never been the answer. I yield back.
That's
Gentleman
wrong.
yields. I'll now recognize the Vice Chairman of the
Yeah, well,
committee,
so has not been
Mr. Guest
sleeping with a
for his
Chinese
5
spy,
minutes.
but
Mr. Guest for his 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and gentlemen, thank you for both being here today. You both classified as what happened on July 13th as critical failures. I would expand that and say it was a colossal failure. And I think you have both stated that the ultimate response.
Slinky, he asked one question, which was, how many force multipliers do you think were within the event perimeter? Now, those would all be law enforcement, because I very much doubt that you are allowed to take a force multiplier legally into a Trump rally. So he was wanting to know the, I guess, militarization or the amount of weapons that they tactical force had, I guess, because they're scary. Yep.
Responsibility for what occurred that day falls upon the Secret Service. Colonel Paris, I know that your officers were there in a support role. You were following the operational plan set out by Secret Service. You testified that the primary responsibilities for your officers were motorcade and then the interior perimeter, and that you had 2 roving officers there, really just out there to provide support if necessary and called upon. You mentioned earlier that you went to the scene on the 13th, and thank you for going there and being a part of that. And you also testified earlier that you have not been provided the operational plan by the Secret Service. Is that correct?
That's correct. We haven't received it yet.
When did you request that?
I'd have to go back and check in the earlier part of the investigation. That was just something that we asked for as a matter of course. We were not told no. We just, to date, have yet to receive it.
And that would be important, would it not? If you're going to investigate what happened on that day, the operational plan, that is the starting point for all the events that later transpired. Is that correct?
Well, I don't want to overstate the role of the state police here is to investigate the 3 Pennsylvanians that were shot and the use of force by the Secret Service counter sniper. To the extent that we need to know the sequence of events leading up to that, we obviously would like to know as much as we can, but it's not our role to do an after-action report on the sequence.
Well, but all the shootings occurred simultaneously. The same shot that struck President Trump, one of those shots killed one of your fellow citizens, and 2 others were injured. And so you can't separate the 2. This is one investigation into a shooting that occurred in which one of your citizens were killed, 2 more were fatally injured, in which the president himself was struck. And so the fact that the Secret Service is stonewalling your investigation, that they're not providing you this information. We saw the testimony yesterday from the Secret Service director where she refused to answer questions and has now resigned. I find that to be especially troubling. We have the Secret Service not wanting to cooperate with Congress, not wanting to cooperate with a fellow law enforcement agency. And I personally find that troubling. As we look, and as you are aware from speaking to your officers that were there physically.
Bobby Hill grew up and went to Senate. I'm a terrible person, and I'm gonna get the feds to. Did you make fun of one of our staffers? Yep. Well, a lot of them. Which one? The one I called the Zodiac, or the one I called Bobby Hill? Well, all of them are pretty ticked at you. Ooh, unfortunate pause.
Physically on the scene that day. Did Secret Service, did they have any drones in the air so that they could have an eye in the sky and see what was happening, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, I'm not aware that they were using drones, but that
and
I haven't seen the operations.
Does your agency have drones?
We do maintain some drones.
So if Secret Service would have requested your agency to fly drones that day, you would have been able to do so. Is that correct?
We would have endeavored to try to honor that request. Yes, sir.
And you testified that you've been to the scene of the shooting. Did you see the water tower that's located approximately 100 yards from the building where the shooter fired those shots?
I did see it, sir.
And would it have been possible to have put an officer, and again, that's not your responsibility to do that, that's the Secret Services, but would it have been possible to put an officer there looking down on the scene of the rally and the building where the shooter occurred? Would that have been something that would have been possible to do?
Presuming that there's a way to access the water tower. I didn't walk over. I was probably several hundred yards away, so I can't say that I could.
And if you had an officer up there, that would have provided you a strategic viewpoint of the events that were transpiring below, correct?
I would agree. Tactics, height gives a tactical advantage, yes, sir.
And then I want to ask you also about the roof where the shooter was located. You said you didn't go on the roof, but you viewed the roof. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
The Secret Service director, prior to her resignation, said that she did not put anybody on the roof because it had a sloped roof that would have created a safety concern. I was in Butler, Pennsylvania yesterday with many members of this committee. My fellow member, Carlos Jimenez, who is 70 years old, and I guess he doesn't mind me saying that since he has put that information out there. There's video of him easily transversing the roof, walking across the roof, and even though he is some 50 years older than the shooter. And so my question is, do you agree with the assessment of the former Secret Service director that the roof was so sloped that it created safety concerns?
A roof?
I can't agree with that statement, sir.
All right, thank
Well-
you very much. I'm out of time and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Correa for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank you and the ranking member for putting together the trip to Butler yesterday. Good eye-opening trip. And Colonel Paris, thank you for hosting us out there. I certainly hope that the Secret Service does cooperate with us in our investigation as to what went wrong. Secret Service has to be 100% correct all the time. There's small force, 2,300 plus maybe 1,300. So you local, state, local police officers are the force multiplier. And to hear you say that miscommunication was an element here is unacceptable. We talked earlier to the fact that
The hell? They are not in charge of things. I understand. I mean, I am confused. Again, he wasn't making excuses. It's not like he came in combative and evasive. He said there were communication issues. Apparently, the Secret Service chose not to use Starlink or whatever it was. I mean, I can already see we're going to have fun with this
Just
man.
a little bit of miscommunication. Just a little.
He's like, how dare you make the Secret Service look bad like that?
How
that,
dare you put 4-foot-tall women
FirstNet was
as
put together
Well-
protecting a
post
6-foot guy?
911. It's a little bit over 20 years ago. And to hear that we still don't have the technology for people on the ground to talk with each other is of concern. It's even a
You know where you work? You work at this place that allocates the money to do these projects. And in theory, you're supposed to be the oversight on these projects. So, hey, you're the manager, and I'm going to care and ask you what the hell's going on here from the rest of us in America. Because actually, you guys are the overseers. So maybe you should kindly remove your head from your cranial rectitis is a real thing. And I don't want you to suffocate. You can't get enough air there.
greater concern to me when I was taking a tour of that farm in Butler, Pennsylvania yesterday. I had local law enforcement officers, local electeds coming to me, whispering to me, there's more here to the story. We need to talk about what actually happened. To have people that were on the ground there, concerned, afraid of stepping forward is unacceptable. To tell us of other failures that maybe this committee does not know about yet, that were part of what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, is unacceptable. I asked one of the officers, safety officers, could you talk to the Secret Service? Said, no, we can't communicate. Took us 15 minutes to communicate with them. Local elected official who said, I have other stories that I need to talk to you about when you have a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, we're 4.5 months away from this election. Pennsylvania is a battleground state. You will have these kinds of events again. And to know that we don't have the facts, let alone execute a plan to fix the holes, is unacceptable to our democracy and to our country. We can talk about the facts. The facts are a lot of things went wrong. Let's talk about how to fix it. Fix it now. I think we start with accepting the fact that things went wrong and that we need more resources. Colonel Paris, your volunteers, your officers that you put on the line to help the Secret Service, are they actually compensated somewhere for their overtime, their extra time they're out there?
They're in a paid status, yes. They're not, we assign them to those duties, and if they incur overtime as a result of the contract, the contractual bargaining agreement, we pay them.
So let me ask you something in the minute and a half I have left. One of the local officers there, after we spoke a while, I said, well, let me summarize what you just told me. You're asking me who's in charge. And he asked me, yeah, I want to know who's in charge. I said, well, let's talk some more. And he said, Lou, we don't know if it's the campaign or the Secret Service that's in charge here. Said, if I called for a row of dump trucks to be put up behind the stand, it wouldn't happen because the optics would not be good for a campaign rally. I want to know who is in charge protecting our national candidates. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see if we can ask those tough questions. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is about trying to come up with some rules.
Sir, in the 5 minutes you've had, you've asked no substantive questions. In fact, you have failed to realize that you are, in fact, the overseer of the, smart stat system that is effing up, that still hasn't been in place or implemented in the 20 years since 9/11. So how about resources? No, until you learn how to deal with the resources you have, and it seems like you guys can cock things up with, the resources you already have. I mean, am I high, or are they asking
No.
non-question questions?
They're asking non-question
Protocol.
questions.
I like how he's being very forceful for those CNN sound bites, like he's digging down. It's so ridiculous.
Make sure this does not happen again. After the
Need
events,
to put
we
my
can
glasses
sit
like
here,
him.
we can point fingers at each other and talk about partisanship. It's not going to fix our democracy, our electoral system. Mr. Chairman, I do hope we go back and talk to a lot of those folks who are not here today, who wanted to talk, who weren't invited, and a lot of people, even if we invite them, are not going to talk. Because frankly speaking, they want to keep their heads down as the shooting continues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield.
Wait a minute. As the shooting continues, because are we tying this into pew pew violence, or are we saying that people are going to get arc incited if they talk?
Well, Alex Jones said yesterday evening that this is going to happen again and again and again. So he's probably not wrong.
No, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave in about 30 minutes to start doing something with the boys, and I'll try to keep watching these in pieces and parts, because I know people want answers and maybe don't have time to do the whole 4 hours all the time. But the problem with this is that instead of getting answers from mainstream media, from C-SPAN, we are getting it from local, and it's not a problem. We're getting it from alternate media sources. But the other problem that I foresee happening is they could come out with a report right now. Half of America is not going to believe it.
No.
And the other half is going to think that they're covering something up, or that Trump faked it, or things like that. So I don't think that people like this, like the people behind this desk, understand how little the American people have faith in their ability to get to the bottom of anything. Now, you send Robert Stack in there, you put the little unsolved mysteries things behind it, Guarantee you, you've got Genlennials on your side. I'm just saying, government, for marketing purposes, you might want to get Robert Stack to narrate.
I mean, we could do Robert Stack, or we could do Will Riker, you know.
True. True. It, yeah, it's just, I mean, this police guy is trying, he's like, yes, there are failures. Yes, but they aren't the one that makes the plan. I mean, you're basically asking the plumber why the architect put the bathroom in the front foyer instead of the back. And the plumber's like, here, I am just here to put in the little toilet. I have no idea.
So, you know, yesterday I completely understood why they brought the now former director of the Secret Service in. What I don't understand is why they didn't bring her underlings and the team that is actually investigating this incident, saying, look, what can you give us?
Yeah, you would think, and you would think she would be briefed at least by someone who's politically savvy enough to know you've got to give them something. These
Yeah.
are the facts that you can give them. You can say, I am sorry. These are the facts that I can give you. You can give them in the opening statement and said, unfortunately, every other question you ask me is under investigation. I direct you to the FBI, but these are the facts that I've been, green lighted to give you. These are the failures that we have identified already. But instead, she came in and said, I'm not going to say anything about anything.
Yeah, well, see, it doesn't make quite a lot of sense to me because if all of these agencies now fall under Department of Homeland Security,
Yeah.
why are they even bothering having another agency investigate them? It's the same thing.
Well, because they have to consider, I think the state police are investigating because of the homicides of the Pennsylvania citizens.
Oh
from
yeah,
what I've
no, I was
gathered.
referring to the referring to the three-letter agencies.
Yeah, I don't know, except that the three-letter agencies don't seem to be accountable to anyone because they don't hand over
Exactly.
anything to Senate, and they don't hand over very much to any of the watchdog agencies. FOIA requests are denied all the time. So are we thinking lizard people or Yetis?
I'm thinking lizard people.
Okay, that's pretty much where I was going to go with it. But I'd always hoped that my lizard overlords would be smart. These lizard overlords don't seem to know what they're doing.
The only reason I went with lizard is because it's rumored that they have the ability to blend into human appearance.
Some of them do it better than others. Let's be honest. All right, let's continue with the bloviating. You know what? We want to get rid of greenhouse gases. I say we eliminate Washington, D.C., and our methane carbon dioxide output would significantly decrease. What do you say, Pete? Mayor Pete, come with me. You don't have to ride a bike. We just have to get rid of D.C. Do-do-do. They can
I
all
just want to propose a
telecommute.
law. I want to propose a law for your administration, Mo, right?
Yes.
That all congressmen, Senate, everybody, just get to the damn question. No
Yes.
grandstanding, just get to the damn question.
And if
It's a law
someone
now.
has already asked the question before, you are not allowed to ask that question again.
Yeah.
You will get fined. I do not have patience. This is why I would never have worked in a boardroom, because when someone explains something just a second before, and then the person raises their hand, kids in class, I got in so much trouble because I would roll my eyes. I was like, she just MFing told, unless it was math, then I was that kid. Okay, but why did we add letters to math? They are not friends. They don't want to be together. I was okay with fractions.
X doesn't give a dang about why O is doing anything.
Yeah, I was told math was numbers, and then you added letters, and I was lied to, and I demand a recount.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Bishop for 5 minutes of.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel Paris, are you aware whether any law enforcement officer or officers was or were posted in the second floor window of the AGR building?
I am aware, yes, sir.
And what is the answer?
To my knowledge, there were 2 posted there from Butler ESU.
And you said Butler ESU. What is the acronym ESU stand for?
Emergency Services Unit. It's a team that's comprised of multiple agencies that pool resources on a county or several county basis in order to enhance capabilities and training and be able to respond. Basically, a mutual aid agreement is my understanding of it.
Is it sort of like a SWAT team?
They are trained in SWAT tactics, to my
Sorry.
knowledge.
So there, how many ESU officers were posted to that second floor window?
So I am aware that 2 were in the building, but again, I have not seen the Secret Service operations plan.
Do you know, well, you say in the building, were they in a window, where a window out onto the scene?
From briefings that I have been given, I was told they were in a window, yes, sir.
Did they remain on post?
I was told that at a certain point, they began searching along with other local officers in the immediacy after Crooks had been identified as suspicious by them.
By them?
My understanding is that they identified Crooks for not matriculating. He never, to my knowledge, Crooks never made it through the secure perimeter into the venue space itself. That he was identified by those members as suspicious in part because of that. And then at some point, he produced the rangefinder, which heightened that suspicion.
So Representative Crane took a video on site yesterday. I'd like staff to put that up. It's just very short. There's a few seconds. They can do that. If I understand correctly, this is from the second.
I love how you can tell the senators that are older because they're always a little shocked and awed that, you can produce a video. They're always like, and I produced a video representation on my cellular phone. And then they're like, and my staff has to play it.
Oh, what was
I should not be laughing.
There was that one senator who looked like Colonel Sanders years ago. I remember him producing a video from a VHS once. Oh, Lord, that was hilarious.
Well, they're trying. They're trying to be hip and cool with Gen Zers and alphas.
Second story window of the AGR building. You can see that window comes out from the sash and swings out to the right. There's an aerial photo right after Crooks was killed, where Crooks's body's on the roof, and that window was open. Was it from this vantage point that those ESU officers spotted Crooks?
I don't know that particular window, but my understanding is from a second-story window is where he was initially spotted.
Okay, so are you then saying that, to your knowledge, those ESU officers left the location where they could look out the window to go in search of this person?
That is my understanding.
Sometime before the time between the time he was spotted on the ground and identified as someone suspicious,
Okay.
until the shooting.
Who in command authorized that? I know of no teams of any sort of specialized training people that are going to leave their post unless a commanding or a team lead says, go do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Somebody
unless
had
it
to
was,
have told them it was okay to
Yeah.
leave.
or they said, this is high priority, get moving, we can't find him. Although why you would take away your high vantage point.
Overwatch is never supposed to move.
Why do I just have a feeling we're watching a Kathleen Kennedy Star Wars remake of what the Secret Service is supposed to be.
They had left that post to go look for him. Is that what you're saying?
My understanding is yes, along with other municipal officers that responded to that area. And that's based on interviews that we've conducted. And I want to be very clear that I don't want to establish a timeline minute by minute because we don't have that yet.
I think that's revelatory. I haven't heard that information. I did hear before that and there's a local news station. Well, there's a local news station report from July 17 that says that local law enforcement were told they couldn't be responsible for securing the AGR building during the Trump rally. And of course, you've testified a moment ago or earlier in this hearing that it was your understanding from that the meeting with the Secret Service on the site was that ESU was going to handle the AGR building. Which is it? Do you know?
My understanding is what my initial answer was.
Okay. You also, in response to Mr. McCall, you started to say something. You were saying that you did have integrated comms, and you were saying you were deferring to the ongoing investigation, but you have an understanding of the sequence, and then he cut you off and went on to another question. Do you know what you were about to say? Do you remember that?
Just that we had members of PSP inside of the Secret Service command post, and we were maintaining communication with our people.
Had ESU maintained position in that window overlooking the roof, isn't it true that they would have had a clean shot at at Mr. Crooks as he was ascending the roof to his shooting position?
I'm not prepared to say that because I don't know the exact timeline of events.
But it's your understanding, though, that they were no longer in that room where they had been previously overlooking the building at the time he was ascending the roof. Is that correct?
Could you repeat that question?
The ESU officers were no longer in that room where they could look out the window and oversee the roof as that video shows.
I believe they were actively searching along with additional municipal officers for Mr. Crooks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My time's expired.
Gentleman
Okay,
yields, I now
guys.
recognize.
I am going to stop this here. I will save this spot and I can pick this up tomorrow afternoon. But do what now?
What?
I love that I have ADHD and I just see something strange out of the corner of my eyes and I'm like, wait a minute, do what now? Again, why do we not have a reenactment? Why have more creative graphical people been able to do the stick people pointy line thing that I can understand? I don't get this.
Why do we not have Abby Shuto testifying?
Why are we skewering this guy who was in no way part of command that day? Again, we are talking to a head of just the agency. We are not talking about anyone involved because right now technically they're part of an investigation, and I'm guessing that someone was bitching about their pay from that last guy, like we weren't getting overtime. Anywho, we've learned nothing really new. We've wasted a lot of time, and Eric Swalwell looked like a dick. So all is still.
I always love it when somebody picks on him. I'm sorry.
You know, if he wasn't such a. Again, you make a big point to say, unlike other people, I am not going to politicize this. And then you proceed to politicize this for your 5 minutes. Then you're either, again, you are a dimwit pretending to be a midwit or a halfwit pretending to be a midwit, and you look like a dimwit, and you're also wasting my time, and you slept with a Chinese spy, and I'm sure she regrets her service to her country. Anywho. Eric Swalwell's going to ban me from California and be like, threaten me with a good time, throw in New Mexico and Arizona.
Might as well take Colorado because I'm leaving this place too.
Anyway, thank you for joining me, Captain Kern. Do you have anything you want to grift? Or
Oh, not really. I'm still reorganizing my channels. I'm creating a lot of content. That's what I've been actually doing while we've been watching this. So.
Oh, good. Yeah,
So, look forward to it. It's going to be good stuff.
Yeah, nothing like me saying, I need to focus on making better and more content. And then I'm like, let's make 2 other channels too. Because
I already did that. I've got Captain Kern Gaming, I've got Captain Kern Stories, and then I've got my normal Captain Kern channel. All I can say is I'm not monetized on any of them. So I'm going to continue saying whatever I want, whenever I want, and however I want until I'm monetized. And then I'll have to behave.
Yeah, well, and my thing is I wanna have a place where if you wanna see my fitness journey but don't wanna listen to the news, you can just have that, and if you don't wanna hear anything political, Newsy News can stay the same, so that way, it's kind of divorced from all of that, so you people have a way to choose. I would have
It's
put
just
this
the
on.
yeah, the whole thing with multiple channels is it's really hard to get organized.
Yeah.
So I've literally got an entire calendaring system set up, and this is when the days I'm going to post certain content on
Yeah,
certain
I need
days.
to work on that. I've got a planner in my Amazon cart, and I saved enough money to get my Sailor Moon wand, which means I'm still not a particularly adult person, but I did buy the things I needed first from Prime Day. So
There you go.
anyway, thank you guys for. Oh,
I was just going to say thank you for inviting me, and
no
have a great
problem.
day.
You too, and have a great day, guys. I will be on for Nightly Newsy News, and then we will have all the shenanigans. I'm going to go find more news stories because it's 2024, and I'm finding the Newsy News. I will see you guys in a little bit. Bye.